So, recently, my friend Soph the Neko introduced me to a guy named Mordecai, and something that came up while us three were talking was a video made on Mordecai called Nomzee Teeth, The Truth. And let's just let this wonderful video speak for itself.
This video is regarding animation memer, Nomzee Teeth aka Mordecai. For the remainder of the video, I'll be referring to him as Nomzee to avoid confusion. They're an artist and animator whose channel was deleted at 2,000 subscribers. They're also known for their unique style, and I'm here to discuss a lot of their controversies and problematic behavior since nobody else is.
Once you see what they're gonna be complaining about, you'll immediately understand why no one has covered this topic.
As of recently, their channel has been deleted and they now go by the name Nomzee Teeths on YouTube. Now, just looking at Nomzee's art, you can tell that he has a stereotypical problematic art style.
Oh my fucking god. Okay, so this may be surprising to a lot of you, but this is a very common thing in the art community. People often accuse artists of having a problematic or pro-shipper art style without actually explaining what that is. I've even gotten this complaint about my art many times. My belief is that it may be referring to large circular or oval eyes and the inclusion of dark themes. We all know who that's referring to. God, the fact that people are genuinely going around basically saying your art looks like birdie, which means it's problematic, is kind of insane. And if I'm wrong, Willow, if I'm completely misunderstanding you, if you're actually not talking about anything relating to birdie or anything relating to the features I just mentioned, explain to me in detail what a problematic art style is.
Judging by the amount of self-harm scars he draws on his characters.
Willow, that's one character. One singular character. From the artwork you've provided, he doesn't draw self-harm scars on his characters, he draws self-harm scars on one singular character. No fucking shit. If a character has scars on their bodies, they're going to have those scars in all, or at least most, drawings that they appear in. Do you see why using 3 drawings of the same character as your evidence of this is an issue yet?
He also draws an absurd amount of gore.
Ah yes, art that's so censored that you can't even tell what the fuck is going on. Isn't that just helpful evidence?
You can argue that he puts warnings on them.
Speaking of warnings, can we talk about how you put absolutely no trigger warnings when showing self-harm art that you consider to be harmful? I don't care that much that you didn't put a trigger warning, considering most of the really bad stuff is censored, so it doesn't matter that much. I more care about the fact that you, a little later, state that this art could encourage problematic behavior in children, yet you're okay with flashing it on screen with no warnings. Your video seems a little counterproductive to what you're fighting against.
But I also believe that minors in general shouldn't draw gore because it encourages problematic behavior at a young age.
That's just not how anything works. What the hell do you mean encourage problematic behavior? Do you have any evidence that children engaging with or creating violent media causes those children to act out those behaviors? You kinda need to prove that before making a whole video on some guy complaining about the gore and self-harm he draws. Can we, leave this fictional gore, fictional self-harm shit back in 2019? Please? Can we just let artists express themselves how they want to express themselves? Please?
Spit Pit is a Discord server that Nomzee hosts with around 300 people in it. I wasn't in the server for too long, nor was I active. However, from what I've seen in the server, it was very hectic and had unnecessary drama. It was incredibly stressful to be in.
which is something you needed to call out in an expose video on him for some reason. His server has lots of drama. So, are you saying this for context? Are you saying this to prove a larger point about Mordecai's behavior? No? Then who gives a fuck? Are you trying to make the point that the server is badly mismanaged, or that the mods in a server are incompetent? Because not only do you need to actually show evidence of that, but you could have just said that straight up instead of being vague about it.
There's a role in his server that's called Mordecai Worshipper, which just seems really off to me. It's as if he's trying to have the people in his server worship him like a type of god.
Or it's a joke. That could also be a very likely possibility. Seriously, who sees a creator calling their fans worshippers and doesn't immediately think, yup, that's probably a joke? Like what? Listen, Willow, just because someone calls their server members worshippers as a joke doesn't mean they're gonna become the next Dice org. Chill.
I've also gathered some screenshots of Nomzee himself saying some questionable things, which I'll be discussing in our next segment. Now, although I wasn't able to gather very much evidence on this part, I was able to find a couple of screenshots of him making very insensitive jokes against black people, such as, because you're black, my dog is black, guys, I'm not racist, no black men twerking, and he's not black, he's a fish, grrr, shut the fuck up.
Y'all know the drill, let's go through these one by one. There is no context for this. He could be saying this to a black friend who's comfortable with these kinds of jokes. Until I see context that makes this actually damning, I couldn't give less of a shit. It's also pretty shady that all of these screenshots are cropped to hide all necessary context, though I will say this may not be Willow's fault, as she may not be the one who took these screenshots, but she is still partially at fault for believing them when they're so obviously missing important context. This is clearly mocking people who use the I have a black friend card whenever they're accused of racism. So, Mordecai is racist for mocking racists. What? Again, no context, I don't care, nor do I think the context would even make this more damning. If this is the kind of shit you consider to be offensive, please just go outside, go, talk to people. Go talk to black people. Go outside and physically have conversations with people of color. I actually asked Mordecai about this screenshot, and he said it was, in fact, referring to Darwin from The Amazing World of Gumball, which I assumed anyway, but I just wanted to make sure. Assuming this is true, he's mocking people saying a confirmed black character isn't black. So again, he's racist for mocking racists. What?
Those are just the few comments he's made. I myself am not black, but I have black friends who are incredibly offended by this.
No wonder you're all upsetty spaghetti over Mordecai making fun of the I have a black friend card, because you use it too! What if his black friends didn't find those comments racist? What happens then? Do your black friends and his black friends have to fight it out in the ring? Listen, I'm no boxing fan, but I think watching that would be a lot more entertaining than whatever the fuck I'm watching here.
Nomzee has harassed a couple of popular creators, one notably being an animator named Aberdoodle. Nomzee commented on their post saying, "They're weird." Aberdoodle replied to their comment, and they went back and forth. Aberdoodle then went to post this on their story on Insta about how this has been upsetting them. And Nomzee made a response to their story, downplaying his harassment and telling them to cope.
Okay, let me get this straight. Mordecai called a larger creator weird in their comment section and then had a petty argument with that creator in that same comment section? And that's apparently supposed to be harassment? Does this look like aggressive pressure or intimidation to you? Calling someone weird once? Okay, if they were spamming this in their comment section, then that would be one thing, and I think you could maybe make an okay argument towards that being harassment, but to my knowledge, nothing of the sort happened, and you haven't proved anything of the sort happened. And you can't downplay harassment that never happened in the first place. Listen, if you wanted to use this stuff to prove that he was a dick, that would be one thing, and I would actually somewhat agree with you on that point. I do think he was being kind of a dick when he commented that, but using this to prove harassment that never fucking happened is stupid.
Clearly not taking this situation seriously.
I wouldn't take a situation like this seriously either if this was the extent of the harassment in question.
Now for the big part of this video, Juicy Zone. If you don't know who Juicy Zone is, that's a whole other video. Crying Blossom made an amazing video covering what she's done, so definitely go check them out. I'll put a link in the description.
For context, Juicy Zone is a, I believe 16 now, year old animation memer who would also draw content relating to self-harm. The difference between her and Mordecai, though, is that it seemed as if she was actively encouraging real people to harm themselves in real life, as well as posting her uncensored self-harm cuts on her YouTube community tab.
Moving on, Nomzee has done an animation collab with Juicy Zone, which I'll be showing very briefly in the video, and censoring out the gore and faces in it to protect the person's privacy and to avoid triggering anyone. Juicy is also in his server, Spit Pit, and they seem to be pretty close friends. And his reasoning for staying friends with her is because she seems to be changing, and her actions don't reflect on his, which I think is complete bullshit.
For reasons you don't explain. Yippee! Crying Blossom's video was made a year ago. It's possible that in that time period, Juicy Zone could be changing, or maybe she's already changed. Unfortunately, you don't show any evidence that the behavior shown in Crying Blossom's video is something she still does to this day, and you kind of need to prove that if you want to prove that this friendship is harmful. If we're gonna go by your Juicy Zone is evil narrative, is it really out of the realm of possibilities that Juicy could be manipulating him? I'm not saying that's what's happening, I'm just saying it's a possibility you're completely ignoring for the sake of this Nomzee bad narrative. And that could actually be very harmful if it were to hypothetically come to light that he was being manipulated. Again, I'm not saying he is. I don't have any evidence of that. I don't really have much reason to believe that from what he's told me about her. So I am just putting that out there as a possibility, not only for this situation, but for future situations that could be similar. Also, I actually DM'd Mordecai about this, and he gave me a 2-minute voice note about it. So I'm just gonna show you exactly what he said. Nomzee, you take the floor, I guess.
Alright, so basically the whole thing with like the self-harm stuff, I've had conversations with Juicy personally about all this. So, you know, I get like an insight of like what they actually were going through during the time. Around when they were 14, so like 2 years ago when this drama was like, you know, at its peak, they had like fans like coming into their DMs and like showing them their self-harm and stuff, and Juicy, like, they didn't really know any better. They weren't encouraging it per se, they were more so just posting it on their story and saying like, oh, these people are DMing me their self-harm, because people did this without Juicy even asking, trying to get her attention and trying to say like, oh, like, you know, whatever. So, and she did, at some point was like putting it in a good light, that because she liked the attention that she was getting, but she didn't fully understand or realize like the severity of self-harm. And we talked about this, and it was because she like, she's foreign, you know, she's like Eastern European, I'm pretty sure, something, you know, And where she lives, like, they don't teach that kind of stuff in school. They don't teach, like, the severity of, like, self-harm and suicide and stuff like that. So she didn't understand that that was, like, a huge deal, I guess. And later on, she no longer whatsoever encourages, like, self-harm or anything. Anytime people try to DM her about with that shit, she tells them, like, bro, calm down, like, fuck, get the fuck out of the, with that, you know, she kind of makes fun of them too, you know, like, leave me alone, you know. And she, like, has a better understanding of why it's, like, really wrong, but, you know, that's, so, I don't know, I wouldn't necessarily say that she, like, encouraged it. It was more of, like, her fans just kind of pushing it onto her, and because she was already considered, like, problematic, and she was kind of pushed into the far deep ends into the, like, media, like, the really bad parts of it, where she was practically, you know, indoctrinated into that kind of stuff, if that makes sense. But yeah, I have a lot of opinions on Juicy, so I could go on about, like, my opinions and, like, why I think that she's just really misunderstood and why people need to get off her back. I also think it's worth mentioning that Juicy did at one point plan on making kind of an explanation video on things. Not necessarily an apology, because she doesn't really think that the general public needs an apology, just, you know, the people who were involved in the drama personally. She made a script, one that I helped her with, actually, and she was gonna make the video, but I guess she had, like, technical difficulties and never got around to it, so.
Nomzee says he's not problematic, but yet he associates himself with someone as problematic as Juicy's own.
Well, according to you, he literally said her behaviors don't reflect on his. What's your point here?
In conclusion, Nomzee Teeth makes problematic art.
Oh no, the horror of someone using artistic expression in a way I personally don't approve of. What are we gonna do?
Has very insensitive jokes, seems to be so self-centered.
Oh no, the horror of a teenager being self-centered, I guess? Oh yeah, and not to mention that he's a teenager with narcissistic personality disorder.
And is friends with Juicy's own. I hope this brings awareness to Nomzee's wrongdoings if there's anything else he's done, and if you have any further proof, feel free to DM me on my Discord. If I need to make a second video, I will. That's all. Thank you for watching this video. Bye.
Oh my god, we're finally done with this hell of a video. And this video was only 4 minutes. It felt more like 10. Anyway, this feels like the kind of shit I'd see in a 2021 TikTok call-out post, and that's definitely not a compliment. I also want to mention that luckily, most of the comments under this video are critical of it, which means at the very least, this isn't shit people are mindlessly believing. Well, I think that's all I have to say about this video. Have a good day, and psych, I got more shit to say. So I found this comment while I was editing this video, and I wanted to address the stuff in it, because why the hell not? First, about the killing your boyfriend thing, it's literally just a joke. Mordecai told me that, it's a joke. And about this whole sexualization of characters with self-harm thing, am I the only one who finds it kinda gross that Willow is giving the implication that people who have self-harm scars aren't allowed to portray themselves as attractive or sexy? Especially considering Mordecai himself has self-harm scars? Yeah, I feel like that narrative is a lot more harmful than literally anything Mordecai has done from what you showed in your video and this comment. Also about the whole gore art with lewd expressions thing, Mordecai says that all the expressions he draws look lewd because of the way he draws pupils, so... And yeah, that's all I have to say. On to the fan art feature, I guess. Goodbye.